Hey, an old Rebel comes back to Ole Miss per Chuck Rounsaville, the Ole Miss Spirit. We'll talk about that. We'll talk to Dalen Flowers, who got to see a great 7 minutes of practice today. All of that's coming up on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're going to be joined by Dalen Flowers of the Rebel Walk, and he also does some major contributing work on this channel. If you're an all-access subscriber, Dalen is there taking care of all the people. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen, and please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. And find a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is available. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That would come in handy in about 96 hours, honestly. So, Dalen, you were at the open practice. I'm doing air quotes right now for open practice. It was about 7 minutes. You couldn't tell anything, but we are going to at least pretend like we noticed some stuff. Now, the one thing that came out of it is Chuck Rounsaville reported that it looks like Marcus Woodson has been hired as an analyst by Pete Golding. That's pretty good. They've been trying to get Marcus Woodson to Ole Miss for a very long time. Them succeeding with that is very good, and probably he's before B. Brown's time, but I imagine there was probably some path crossing in that situation. The energy in practice is good. They seem to be bouncing around pretty good, as they should with the playoffs coming up. And it appears that they're about as healthy as they've been all season.
Yeah, I would say practice viewing session wasn't very informative, but I would say the press conferences definitely you were able to take a lot out of. We were able to talk to Brian Brown, Joe Judge, Wadette Williams Jr., Diego Pounds, Harrison Wallace, and one more player, and Cam Franklin. So those today's press conference were definitely very informative. And even Marcus Woodson as well. I don't think that's maybe officially confirmed yet, but maybe if it is, correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm excited about that. Him obviously having his time at Arkansas, and his connection with the Razorbacks, and of course Ole Miss as well during his playing career. I think he's a well-rounded coach, but also a great recruiting mind, and I think has as well what Pete Golding really has continued to instill is having that player-coach relationship and developing guys in that manner. And I think Marcus Woodson does that to the T, probably better than most guys throughout the country. So I'm definitely excited to hear that news in terms of being able to bring him to Oxford and understand. He already understands the totality of what it is to play at Ole Miss and the heart to have be an Ole Miss Rebel. So I think that's a great guy to be able to bring into your program for Pete. That's seemingly been like a big comfortability point for him and a big confidence thing for him to get guys that want to be here, that have a relationship with Ole Miss, that have a love for this university, that understand what it takes to be at the next level for this program, but understands what the work behind the scenes fans expect you to do to make Ole Miss as great as it can be. So I love the move, and I really think it's a big thing. And going back to your point earlier, talking about just the vibes and the culture and healthiness as well, I actually was talking to my guy Quincy, who works for the team, and that was the thing he was telling me as well, that we're healthy. He was like, we're healthy for the very first time in a long time, completely in a way. And I was like, there's no better time to be healthy when you're getting ready to start the college football playoff. So Ole Miss is healthy in every aspect as of right now. The vibes are definitely great. Players are loving Pete Golding. They're loving their environment. Not much has changed, but the fact that some of these offensive guys are building a little bit more of a relationship with him has been very successful so far throughout this short term as him as the head coach. And the boys are ready. They're prepared for this weekend. They're excited to be out there in the Vaught Hemingway Stadium for the last time in 2025 and showcase what Ole Miss is really about. I think there are still people from the player perspective that are really doubting this team, especially after everything that's gone on over the last month. But they're ready to get out there Saturday and show people that, September wasn't a fluke in the way they beat Tulane, and the rest of this postseason can be something that Ole Miss fans can cherish for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, this is the biggest sporting event in the history of the state of Mississippi on Saturday, and that is pretty awesome. And also the third segment of this, remember, is about your comments and questions. If you put them in there, put where you're commenting from. That would be interesting to know, and exactly I want to shout you out as well. Now, One of the things that was interesting on Monday's press conference, Pete Golding said that he was going to be on the field because he spent this whole season in the press box. But Pete Golding's very confident calling defenses from the field. So we assumed that meant Brian Brown would go back upstairs to replace Pete Golding. But we found out in Brian Brown's press conference, he's going to stay on the field as well.
Yeah.
What have you heard about that situation other than those two names?
Nothing much. Brian kind of teased it a little bit that some of the guys that have already been up in the box throughout the season will remain there, but other than Pete and obviously Brian, they will be on the field. There was nothing really confirmed by either one, and there was nothing really much more talked about it. But I think it's important for guys that have their coaches on the sideline in certain capacities, especially like TJ Daugherty spoke with us Monday, and he even mentioned it very briefly, but he mentioned the importance of when you have that green dot on you, the importance of being able to have your coordinator or a specific coach on the sideline with you instead of having to call up and do other things in between plays. I think that's going to be very beneficial for guys like TJ and other guys as well, especially with the way that I know that Brian and Pete really communicate. Those guys, look, and I get it. Some people may say you go to Ole Miss, so it's easy to say this, but like genuinely speaking, when I hear them talk, when I hear them in locker rooms, when I hear them interact with people, I'm ready to run through a wall. Like I genuinely get so amped up and motivated every time they're speaking to us, every time I see them in the presence of coaching matters. And those are guys that I think are able to elevate their players on the sideline in between possessions, but as well quickly to relay, messages and information like, hey, I saw they were running this type of coverage. They were running this type of formation. I saw you drop back right here. You need to be right here. How to kind of implement that in a quicker manner when you're on the sideline. So I'm excited to see what Pete Golding is going to be able to do on the sideline. That was where he was his first year here in 2023 at Ole Miss, and majority of the time at Alabama, I want to say as well, I think the entire time of his time at Alabama. So that's not something that's just new for him being on the sideline, but I'm definitely excited to see where he's going to be, how he's going to be out there on the sideline, how animated he's going to be, and as well the confirmed people that will be in the box and what their roles are going to be moving forward in that moment.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the offense and all that in the next segment, but real quick, Pete Golding has had about as good of a 2-week period of this transition as could be expected. I mean, he went from, oh my gosh, Ole Miss they're screwed because all of this is going on and what's going to happen, to wait, we're going to be okay. He's got this under control. And now he's at the point where 2 weeks later, he's actively building to be able to attack things like retention in the transfer portal. It's remarkable, this 2-week period.
Yeah, it is, man, because, and this isn't a knock to Pete, but just coming in, I think my first initial thoughts was, okay, he's never been in this position as a head coach. Let's see how he manages this thing. Let's see how he manages this, in a way, an unprofessional college football calendar over the next month and a half, 2 months. And he's handled it like a pro. He's handled it like he's been in this situation for 30 years as a head coach, and he has been around for a long time as an assistant coach, don't get me wrong. But he's handled this almost to the perfect T. John David Baker was at practice today, and he's obviously been around Oxford for a few weeks now. And Joe Judge, I asked him about the relationship he's had with him so far and meeting him. He spoke very highly about JDB and the implements in the turnaround he's going to be able to do for this offense. I think that what Pete is really, as I said it earlier, is just really wanted to be a big family. And that is very important when you're in the notion of retention, when you're in the notion of NIL and transfer portal, and a lot of guys are moving pieces and et cetera, et cetera. These are guys that are coming in that Pete's hired, that Pete is in the mix of talking about hiring, that understand the totality of what it needs to be an Ole Miss Rebel. But that's easy to do when you're a coach in general, but it's also easy to do when you have a relationship and love for a certain university, when you're going to a recruit's house, when you're talking to parents, when you're having these conversations with recruits to be like, hey, this is where you need to come spend the next 4 years of your life, next 3 or 4 years of your life. And this is why, because they can do this for your life and your career. Well, these guys have that opportunity because they've been here. They've done it. They've seen it. They've elevated guys to the next level. And, Pete Golding has really, really just taken this moment, and again, you said it too, this has been such an unprecedented time, in my opinion. Like, I don't think you will ever see another time like this at a college football program where you having the mix of a head coach change going into a playoff opportunity, and the fact that the defensive coordinator was elevated. Pete Golding has just grabbed this moment and ran with it, and it's not looked back. He said Monday that it's not even had really the time to enjoy this or really want to enjoy this moment. He's just so focused on winning right now and also elevating this program for the future of his realm here. So I'm excited, and it's not just the words that he's saying in the press conferences or, to the team in the meetings. It's the actions he's doing. It's the coaches he's hiring. It's the people he's looking at. It's the retentions he's made to make sure this team, 2025 team, has the best opportunity to win a national championship. And so it's refreshing to see a guy move and talk and act like Pete Golding has done over the last few weeks.
Absolutely. All right. When we come back, we will talk about Joe Judge's moment on the offensive podium today. We'll talk about some of the offensive stuff that is going around. We're talking with Dalen Flowers of the Rebel Walk and a contributor with Locked On Ole Miss. So we'll be right back right after this. All right. I hit a wrong button real quick. Sorry about that. So I want to tell you about Omaha Steaks. Sorry about that. I'm trying to find my thing because I hit the wrong button real quick. So when it comes to Omaha Steaks, the holidays are here, and whether you're hosting family or planning the perfect gift or just trying to keep things simple and delicious, Omaha Steaks is making it easier than ever. From effortless holiday entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience straight to your door. And what makes them even better? Well, with Omaha Steaks, you always know exactly what you're gifting. USDA tender certified steaks, premium proteins, gourmet sides, and decadent desserts that make anyone feel appreciated. I've sent Omaha Steaks as gifts before, and the reaction is always the same. These are the best gifts ever. Steaks are perfectly aged and insanely tender. It's restaurant level at home. Save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com, and for an extra $35, use the code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. All right, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this free. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 per month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com or check the link that's down in the show notes below. Should be really interesting to see. All right, Dalen, Joe Judge met the media today. Joe Judge, he struck the right chords. He did. He made a point of saying he's coming back because he wants to be here. All of that. It is somebody that has obviously done media training and been in the head coach position before, but he did exactly what the fan base wanted.
Yeah, I think it's what the fan base wanted to hear, but in a way, I think it's also what the fan base kind of needed to hear. Was just a little bit of stability from somebody in some way or manner. And like you said, Joe Judge, he came in there. I definitely heard the media training off the first response of the first question he got, but it was refreshing to hear him talk. We hadn't obviously had the opportunity to talk to him all season long. And here's some of the points of why he wanted to come to Ole Miss, how Ole Miss kind of recruited him down after he was going through the mix of, a break in his coaching career, why he, really decided to stay at Ole Miss and some of the impacts of wanting to do that, and how he's felt throughout the process of being here and elevating his career and making a relationship with some of these players. His presence in a way may be very underrated for people. I don't think that the notoriety that he's gotten in terms of his this year and last year here at Ole Miss have really been valued as much as they probably should. I mean, you think about what he was able to do and continue to help elevate Jackson Dart last year, but as well understand the process of Austin Simmons and that Georgia drive last year and just understand the potential of his abilities, but seemingly help Trinidad Chambers become what he's become this year. He talked about it today that him and Charlie Wise Jr. were actually just scrolling on Twitter one day and saw a clip on him and then just continued to watch a lot of film of him. They were like, this is a guy that I think could come in here and really elevate this program, and watch a lot of film of him at Ferris State. His stories were incredible, but his demeanor, his presence, and his true determination to be at Ole Miss and make Ole Miss one of the best consistent programs in all of college football, was very, very monumental. And as well, when you have a guy like that in your locker room, when you have a guy like that being able to help your quarterbacks, you build relationships on and off the field, and it helps those guys get to the next level, which is really important when you're recruiting guys. They're like, hey, you come to Ole Miss and you can get to the next level as a quarterback. Joe Judge has been there. He's done that. He's put those guys there. He's been in that environment of the NFL. He understands the landscape of what it takes to get to the next level. So props to Joe Judge, man. He's locked in with Ole Miss. Has a love for this university, has a love for these players on this team, and is really, really a guy that, if you think about it, once an NFL head coach and now he's a quarterback coach at Ole Miss, that speaks to the volumes of his willingness to just be around the game, his love for the game, and his love to elevate young men to get to the next level.
Yeah, and it's a big situation because you have Trinidad Chambliss and Kejuan Lacey and a weird coaching dynamic where all the assistants are back, but they're going to be gone as soon as Ole Miss gets eliminated. I think it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be important for John David Baker to handle retention in the portal and all the new coaches that came in to be like 98% on that. But you also need to learn what Ole Miss is doing offensively a little bit in case Trinidad Chambliss comes back, because it is a little bit different offensively as far as schematic what they're running with Trinidad as opposed to Austin Simmons.
Yeah, 100%. I think people kind of forget that, because I will say this: when I watched fall camp this year, Trinidad did come in and had those good moments, especially in the red zone, and showed his versatility as a runner. But I wholeheartedly believe that this offense was designed to the success of Austin Simmons, and Trinidad was just able to come in already throughout the summer and the little bit of time he had, but understand the film, put the time in the film to learn the offense and be better in that position and navigate his game to be able to run the tempo offense. But when you look at what Joe Judge has been able to do in the offense that Ole Miss runs and the offense that JDB will be able to run, which is very similar, but there will be some tweaks as well. Those are the things that you have to look at as a player when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your career. But I think it's so effective to understand that JDB is very versatile, but he's also very adaptive. I think that his importance of being here recently with Ole Miss and also seeing what he was able to do at East Carolina for 2 years to elevate that team to be one of the top offenses in the country is very attractive for a player. It's very attractive to see a guy that has been here. It's very attractive to see a guy can go off to his own, do his own thing and elevate another program like that. And it's as well. Talk to Joe Judge about it today, and I talked to a few players about it yesterday. The relationship is already there. He's come in. He's already had really meaningful conversations with guys. He's already implemented what he wants to do and how the retention matter is very important for him and Pete Golding moving forward in the future. So I thought it was a big props to Pete Golding to be able to get that done, not in a rushed manner, but in a timely manner because of the calendar and understanding, hey, you still want to have the retention of getting a lot of guys back here next year that you already have a relationship with, guys that have another year or two of eligibility can continue to help you push for playoffs in the future. And I think that's what JDB being here so quickly is able to do, because I know a lot of people are like, Charlie Wise is back and he's already going to LSU and et cetera, et cetera. Well, yeah, that's true. But number one, that had to be done to successfully be able to compete at the highest order this year. But it also had to be done for Pete Golding to understand quickly what he wanted to do offensively in the future, and that was JDB. He was able to do that effectively, get him here. He's been here for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I want to say, and it's already timely in a manner, taking things to the next level in terms of relationships with players and coaches.
Yeah, and the other thing that's happening right now is Pete Golding's putting together a staff that is really excellent recruiting, with ties to the state of Louisiana, and with us seeing what Lane Kiffin did with Mississippi recruiting over 6 years, it feels like Pete Golding knows something here and he's trying to exploit a weakness.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought that Pete had did a fantastic job in his 3 years as the coordinator in terms of recruiting in-state, and I think there's a versatility. And obviously, when you're recruiting, the focus should be in-state first, and you want to continue to develop those out-of-state recruits and getting those things out of state. But regardless of the matter, is Mississippi is a hot state. You're in the middle of a state that has a lot of great athletes coming out of every single year, but as well, you're right next to Louisiana, Alabama, and Tennessee, and revolving states like Georgia and Texas not too far away, that there are guys coming out every single season, and the totality of keeping those guys within the same range of home is very, very important. But there's already a relationship with a lot of guys that Pete Golding's hired from LSU. that will continue to build the importance of getting recruits from there in the high school or in the transfer portal market as well. I talk about the high school portal, the high school rankings a lot, but the transfer portal has obviously been a favor for Ole Miss over the last 4 or 5 years, and it will continue being so under Pete Golding. But having the notion of guys that are familiar in the state of Louisiana is huge. It really is. I can't underestimate that, the amount of talent that comes out of that state every year, and the amount of talent that distinguishes from those states like Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama, that can continue to come to Ole Miss and elevate it to the next level, which will continue to build the recruits for future references. But those things are by no mistake, coming in and getting some guys from LSU and recruiting those guys to come back to Oxford or have a relationship with Pete Golding and be in Oxford for the first time. Those are things that are systematically been planned by Pete Golding and his staff over the last few weeks for a reason, and you'll see those reasons come in the fortune in the next part of the next offseason and the next season as well.
All right, Dalen, whenever we come back, we're going to get into the viewers' comments. We're going to do a little mailbag, essentially, to your comments coming up next, right after the break. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be absolutely massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets can usually be the hardest part. That is why Gametime and their app is clutch. They finally give the fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts with great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull out the app, the layout makes it so simple to scroll through the matchups, compare seat views as well. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your seats locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Gametime. You can even use it to get tickets to the Ole Miss game this weekend in the college football playoffs. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, Dalen, let's get into the comment section real quick. We'll see what's going on there. All right, we've got Chris Stamp says hotty toddy from Golden, Mississippi. K. Burns, Kevin Smith was staying. Kevin Smith's going up and down. We don't really know what he's going to do, but the rumor is at running back it's going to be Frank Wilson. And he is the ace recruiter and the ace, known as the Godfather of New Orleans. He is the guy that brought Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, Mike Wallace, Kendrick Lewis, Kentrell Lockett, all those guys from the boot to the SIP. So it is worth paying attention to that. Bobby Patrick says he just watched Joe Judge's interview today. He said all the right stuff, especially his love and appreciation for Ole Miss. Yeah, it feels like it was a little bit planned a little bit. Mary Ronaldo says, hotty toddy, William and Mary from the NOLA area. Welcome to the show. Bobby Patrick comes back from Alexandria, Virginia. Won't make the game, but will finally be back home in the South in Atlanta by kickoff. I'm sure there's an Atlanta Rebel Club watch party that they're going to have. You can catch me at the Tampa Bay watch party during the game. We're going to be doing a pregame and a postgame live stream just like normal from Beef O'Brady's there. The address is on my Twitter profile at the Stephen Willis. We would love to see you there. Daddy Zeke, who's going to the game, he says hotty toddy from Tampa, but he's going to Oxford for the game, so I'm jealous about that. Bobby Patrick again says, okay, he's getting excited about the game. Of course, if you can't get up for this game, you're probably not a fan. One thing that I saw, Dalen, they have painted the college football playoff logo on Hemingway's field. And at that point right there, it just clicked in how real this is getting.
Yeah, man. I've been talking to locals and supporters and fans for the last week intensively, and people are just excited, man. This is a historic moment. I haven't obviously been an Ole Miss fan my entire life, but I've been here, 3 going on 4 years now, and I've been through the trenches. I understand. I know the history, and I know that there's been a lot of heartbreak throughout this, this run over the last, maybe for 60, 70 years for some people. But this is a historic moment. Embrace it, soak it in. And one message I also want to say really quick, if you are not going to be able to come to the game this weekend and you have tickets, please sell those tickets. Ole Miss fans, there are probably a lot that are not able to come and want to be there for this historic game. And the fans, the players deserve to have a packed out Vaught Hemingway Stadium this weekend. So if you're not able to make it and you have tickets, please sell those tickets to Ole Miss fans.
James Mack says, Hotty Toddy from Corners, Michigan. Let's go Rebs, originally from Brandon, Mississippi. Must be Dusty, Hotty Toddy from South Haven, Mississippi, is an everydayer here and loves the show. You think if Chambliss gets the waiver, would he stay at Ole Miss? I think if Chambliss gets the waiver, he stays at Ole Miss. Now, Chambliss is not going to say right now that he's going to stay at Ole Miss before he gets the waiver, because then you just give away all of your leverage in an NIL deal, and that could cost you $500,000. He's not going to say anything. But I don't think that Trinidad Chambliss is going anywhere. But on tomorrow morning show, we kind of deal with a little bit of the scar tissue of the NCAA and Ole Miss needing a waiver for Trinidad Chambliss, and how that makes people worried, because everybody remembers the Gerald Pearl saga. Everybody remembers the Jeremiah Masoli stuff. So anytime you're having to deal with the NCAA, there's a little bit of scar tissue that develops. So we'll see how it goes. James McDonald wishing Stephen Willis and Dalen Flowers family a Merry Christmas from Alabama. Thank you, James, very much. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you as well. Friend. Happy holidays.
Yes. I will be spending Christmas Day, by the way, driving up I-75 on my way to Middle Tennessee, because on the 28th is my wedding anniversary, and we're having a big shindig, essentially. 25 years, Dalen. 25 years. Wow. That's like older than you, right?
It is older. I'm only 21. Wow. My goodness.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Enjoy it.
Becky deserves a medal. She does. Alan Beck says, Merry Christmas to you both, and Hotty Toddy from Algona, Mississippi. James McDonald says, some of the best head coaches have come from defensive genius. Yeah, I mean, if you think about defensive coaches, everybody likes to talk about offensive coaches and what they do, but Nick Saban was a defensive coach. Kirby Smart's defensive coach. There's been defensive coaches that have been very, very successful once they got the head coaching position. I think John Summerall is going to be a very good coach at Florida.
I agree. I've always been a big defensive person, and I always will stand on this until the day I die. The defense wins championships, and there is a different grit and grind that comes from being a defensive coach, being a defensive player, being a defensive specialist, because you have to go and find ways to do things that you don't even know what's coming. I think that's what's so great about being a defensive player. You're kind of relying on the offense to do what they're doing, figure out what they're going to move, and so being a defensive guy elevates you to the next level, and I'm excited. I really am excited, because Pete Golden is he's been through the trenches, been through the wars, and he deserves his opportunity. He really does.
All right. Bobby Patrick says, would you use the 2026 staff that's on the sideline to start looking at the Georgia game and game planning, tape anyway, scouting? Those people already exist. Ole Miss has a large department that does all that. The 2026 guys, you put them completely on retention. You put them completely on the transfer portal to where they're looking through, trying to figure out where they're going to go, so you can attack this portal cycle as best you can, because you are going to lose players to LSU. I don't know who's going to go, but somebody is. And you have to find out who that is going to be. So you need to be prepared to, if a safety goes, you have that safety list right there so you can start playing those games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you hit on all the points right there, man.
Let's see. What happened to Kevin Smith going to be the running back choice? It seems like it changes by the day. I think it's been Frank Wilson for a while now. He was Pete Golding was Frank Wilson's defensive coordinator at University of Texas, San Antonio, before Pete went to Alabama. So there's a relationship there as well. I worked with Frank too. He was on staff at Ole Miss way back in another lifetime ago. So I actually knew Frank pretty well. Him and Hugh I dealt with on almost a daily basis. Daddy Zeke says 60 years of high expectation and heartbeat for this Rebel fans. I'm not missing these games for anything, and nor should you.
You're right.
However you want to watch these games, you watch these games that way. And finally, Bobby Patrick says he was an Ole Miss fan since the 1970s, lived the Billy Brewer era, including the Vandy game when Chucky was injured. I will never forget. I was at my grandmother's house listening to it on the radio in the living room, facing a wall. I could stand in that house right now and know exactly where Chucky Mullins got injured, and I didn't even see it. But I knew the moment, and just standing there and listening to what was going on. That was DK's first year, I think, as the radio voice as well. So yeah, I think he replaced Tom Stocker at that point. But yeah, I remember that. I remember the Brewer years well. And yeah, that was my formative years. That was like 88 to 93 was my 8 to 13, all of that. It was pretty cool. Anyway, Dalen Flowers, by the way, is one of our main contributors in our all access program of everydayers. That's the $15 per month plan. He does basically a daily video of 5 to 10 minutes on basketball or football. He's kind of the person in Oxford that can report on all the comings and going. We have stuff from Corey Burton doing videos on game film, looking at it from a coach. We have Mike Huseman, who handles coaching search and will be immensely beneficial during the transfer portal market. And David Johnson eventually is going to contribute as well. Lots of great stuff there. That's different than the $5 plan where many of you are subscribing to right now. I'm not going to try and upsell anybody. I'm just letting you know. But Dalen does a fantastic job. And tomorrow you are going to do something on the basketball team, right?
Yeah, big game against Alabama A&M coming up for the men in Tupelo tomorrow. Finally, got rid of that 4-game losing streak against Southern Miss this past weekend. I think a lot of talk needs to kind of be put around them as well. There are a lot of good players in this team. They just have not figured it out. But I saw a lot of grit and grind this past weekend, so I'm definitely going to be able to do a quick little video previewing the game against Alabama A&M, but also talking about some in-depth things going into it, and also doing a post-game video as well about the performance against the Alabama A&M team tomorrow.
All right. Thank you very much, Dalen, and we will talk to you tomorrow, man.
Appreciate you, man. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Dalen Flowers joining us, and thanks for tuning in to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about Trinidad Chambliss needing a waiver and the relationship that Ole Miss has with the NCAA. And the NCAA probably should not stunt Trinidad Chambliss's career, especially when as good of a story exists as Trinidad. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you can get all of the latest episodes. We're on all the social channels that works, so check that out as well. Did Locked On Ole Miss make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and they will drop you the code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite ad-free show and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. For those of you on YouTube, we're going to send you to our first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is the Locked On College Football Show. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, the biggest football game in the history of the state of Mississippi, just hours away. We'll talk to you tomorrow.